Dobro jutro. I'm here with Saša Hajzler, coming from Skopje, Macedonia. Is that right?
Yes. Hi. Hello.
Good morning. It's about 7:09. Is that right?
It's exactly 7:09 in Skopje right now. It's a
And it,
nice June morning.
I like those mornings. Is it pretty hot down there already? Like this part of time of the year?
Yes, definitely, but it's still not getting we're not at the maximum. Usually around August it rises up to 40.
Hmm.
But we're still good at the bearable summer time.
Yeah, it's just I mean we're right before the solstice, so it's only gonna go up from here, I think. And how long have you been in Skopje for?
I've been in Skopje for 2 weeks and I'm gonna stay for 2 more weeks. It's my hometown, but I haven't been in it in a long time. And when I do come back, it's usually for a day or two. So this is the longest time I'm gonna be in my hometown ever since I left it.
That's really cool.
It's a great time.
I've spent some really nice times in Skopje and yeah, I miss it. I just played some music at this Balkan festival in Kansas City and I we did some Macedonian songs. We did a Macedonsko Devojče and also Podrum
Good.
Oda Majče. You know that one?
I think so.
Podrum
I've
Oda
actually
Majče, Podrum
yes,
Shetam.
I do. Yes, I do. know it, yeah.
Yeah. And also
Mhm.
this Dali Crni oči, you know,
Ah,
Dali
yeah.
Crni oči nemam, tamo nami najde.
I remember that one. We played that one a long time ago.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for being on the podcast. This is Voice Seeker. It's a kind of it's a quarterly produced podcast. So on the solstices and equinoxes, I put it out. And every time it's been a little bit different. The format changes a lot, but I kind of like the idea of doing these live Zoom interviews currently because it's kind of convenient and it saves time on a lot of editing. And
That yes.
I mean, sometimes I like I've done some episodes where it was just a bunch of voice memos and I was making them all together and that was really fun, but I think the flow of talking together is nice. Um I guess I don't know how to introduce you. We met in Morocco and
Yes, we do.
when was that? That was in let me see. Actually in 2018 we met in Casablanca.
Yes, it could be. Yeah, I arrived by a bus from Fez. I was in Fez before that. And I found you somehow, and we met at Casablanca, and it was awkward and weird and cute.
I think it was like one of those Facebook uh traveler groups where people are just like, I'm traveling, who's also? And you're like, I'm coming to Morocco or I'm in Morocco and I'm looking for things to do. And I was just in Casablanca at a couch surf. I remember it was I forget their name. It was like Nikki and I don't remember her boyfriend. They were living in an apartment and I was staying there, and then that's how we met. Like you're like, all right, let's go hitchhiking together, and we just decided to do this crazy trip from.
Yeah, I was supposed to stay in I only came to Fez actually at the time. The idea was I always wanted to go to Fez since I was a little girl, and a lot has happened before that time, and then suddenly there was this. I usually have these bursts of enlightenment, or whatever, sobering up from, stress. And I usually go somewhere to kind of relax. And one of those trips was Fez, and I was supposed to stay for 2 weeks only. But then I realized I have a one-way ticket anyway, so I might as well stay for a longer time and see more things. And then yeah, I think that group, the traveler group, did its magic. And then I arrived to Casablanca.
So yeah, what was it about Fizz that you really wanted to experience? Was it something about Did you read something about it somewhere, or is there some lore that captivated you?
Yeah, both actually. I remember when I was a kid, I used to read a lot on all of these places around the world, and I was fascinated by. I don't. I always wanted to go to Syria. I wanted to go to Iraq. I wanted to go to Afghanistan. I wanted to go to I don't know Algeria, um, Botswana, and then Morocco as well. Palestine. I'm always drawn to like these Middle Eastern Maghrebi kind of regions and Botswana, which is not one of those regions, but it's still fascinating. And Fez, and also I wanted to go to the Trans-Siberian. I also remember that as a kid, just take the train and spend a few months on the train. But Fez at the time seemed, um, it just hit me that it's one of those places that you don't usually go to because usually people go to Marrakesh, but or they maybe go to the desert, but Fez somehow is kind of left out. They go to Chefchaouen, and Fez. I read about it, just to see where I'm planning to go, and to just not only have this small Sasha, reading about Faze when she was like, I don't know, 10 years old, but to have the adult Sasha also do her homework and see where she's going. And so then we both started reading, realizing that Faze seems to be a little bit more local oriented. Um, a bit of a darker aura around Fez. And it's not as popular as Marrakesh and that kind of, you know, um, I don't know, it resonated with me at the time. Um, and I think it still isn't, it's not even true. People do go to Fez, it's just that maybe it was a little bit less popular, but still popular. And it does still have this long tradition of handicrafts, and guilds and so on. So these things kind of still function, and they have like excellent masters who they work with, I don't know, leather, and they make pottery. I don't know. It just seemed like an interesting place to go to at the end of the day.
That's the that I can feel that it is a sort of an overlooked destination. I mean, it of course brings people for the leather
Yeah.
crafting and everything like that. I passed through it. I mean, my experience of going to Morocco was also really strange. Like, how did I end up there? It was really kind of funny too, because I was in Istanbul and it was my first day in Istanbul the year before, and I was staying in a hostel in Taksim in the craziest part of Istanbul. And there was a guy from Morocco there, and he was really friendly. And he was telling me he had a hostel in in what's the name of it? On the desert in the Sahara. Uh, it's escaping me right now. Merzouga, in Merzouga.
Merzouga.
Yeah, he
Ah,
was like, "Come to my hostel," and then he wanted me to go with him on a mission to find opium
uh,
pods because he really wanted to have some opium tea, and so he dragged me to the Grand Bazaar, and I remember we we got into a taxi, and then we were on this ride, and then he's like arguing with the taxi driver about the price, and he's like, I gave you this much money, and the taxi driver's like, my friend, you did not. And he's like, no, I did. He's like, do you believe in God? You have children? I have children. I believe in God. And I was just like, what's going on? This like display of I couldn't tell if he was faking it or if it was serious. Like I didn't know if who was ripping who off or what was going on. But at the end, we got out of the taxi, and I was so stressed, and because I just didn't know I couldn't tell what was really happening. I just heard these two people, and they were both pretty sure of themselves. And I'm sitting in the back of the
Yeah,
taxi, like, okay, I hope we
yeah,
just get
yeah.
out. And we did. Like, it's like, I don't know if whatever it was, like, I think he gave him like less than what the guy wanted, but still gave him some money. Um, and we went to the Grand Bazaar and we're looking in every place, and he was asking for hashish, which was the word for opium. And they're all giving him seeds like poppy seeds. And he's like, no, no, I don't want that. I want the pods. And no one had it. And then we're just going from place to place to place. And finally, I just kind of was standing looking at some plaza and he was off, and then he came back. He said, Dandy, I found it. He had this big bag of it, and he had found it in the back of some dusty, off the beaten path of the Grand Bazaar. A real kind of Grand Bazaar kind of place. Like just as you were saying with Fez, it's got that darkness, and it's not the tourist Grand Bazaar. It's the actual one that people still
Yeah.
use, and you can go and dig in there and actually find these illegal opium poppies, and so he got them, and then of course he got back to the hostel and made the tea, and he had me drink some, and then I remember he's drinking the tea and he's feeling pretty satisfied, and he pulls back his sleeve and he's like showing his arm and says, "Look," and there's the hairs are pointing up, and he says, "It's working." That was my first experience of Morocco, really. Uh,
Yeah, wow.
and yeah, so then when I was in, then I guess the reason I was in the Balkans and Turkey for a while there, and then I was called back to go to Portugal for my sister and her husband. They were visiting because that's where he's from. So I wanted to meet them, and because it'd been about 2 years into my trip. So I took the bus from Sofia, Bulgaria, and it was about a 54-hour bus ride, and I took that all the way with all of my bags and stuff to Portugal, to Lisbon, and met them and stayed in Lisbon for a while. And I was in a squat also in Lisbon where this crazy stories happened, but I won't get too much into it. But it's like I met some people who would then later be in other parts of this journey, like Martina, I met her in
Wow,
this squat,
that's
and some other
great.
people, Alice. I mean, I don't remember who you met exactly. Well, we'll get to it. But so anyway, I was staying in that
Funny
squat,
how
and then
people keep coming back, that's really, it's
yeah,
funny.
it's this kind of revolving cast of people. And
Yeah.
so I was thinking about how there was a rainbow. I found out there was a rainbow gathering in Morocco, and I decided I'm going to go to Morocco to the rainbow. And I made my way that
Did
way.
you find it?
I did find it. So when I got to Morocco, I did the ferry boat from what's it? From Spain. Not where we, because we came in at one place, but where's the port?
We went from Tangier to La Linea,
Yeah.
somehow.
So I went from
But yeah,
I'm trying to I need to like refresh my geography suddenly, um because I'm like
too early for me, honey. I
where
didn't have
are we?
coffee yet. I can't do geography right now.
Yeah, yeah, okay, no, Tarifa. So yeah, so I went to
Tarifa,
yeah,
yes,
I got my
yes.
way with BlaBlaCar from Lisbon to Tarifa, and then I stayed a hostel, and then took the ferry boat into Tangier. And immediately arriving, it was like there was a guy wanting to be my guide, asking me to basically to get some business out of me, right from the
Yes.
go.
Yeah, but it's how people survived there for centuries, I guess. And it's
Yep.
just it is modern times, and the bazaars do have Chinese earrings and stuff, but people still do sell and trade, and this is how they survive. And they're not really, I mean, they're not in an envious position anyway. So I
Yeah.
can only imagine how it must be to, to have to function in this world right now, like the combination of, capitalist exploitation on one hand, and then on the other hand, these local traditions and then expectations from family, and you wanting to make a life for yourself. And then someone comes down from Tarifa in Tangier, and you're like, fuck it. I mean, it's a customer, right? A potential customer. So,
It's true. It's very true. I mean, and it's like I think it's every low cost port of call, it has this kind of characters that are looking to make some business off of travelers. Like
Yeah.
no matter where you go, you find a bus station, and there's going to be someone around that bus station that's just waiting to have a conversation with the traveler and see if they can get a little bit of that traveler's sympathy. I've encountered it all over the world, so it's just I guess that's there's something about people who are on the move that they're vulnerable to that. Like they don't know where they are. They're sympathetic. They're kind. They're
Yeah.
fresh. They're not jaded yet.
Yeah.
So I arrived there, and then the guy, he wanted to help me. So I basically just he walked with me, and I got to a hotel, and I just went inside and waited because I really didn't need a helper. I knew where I was going. And I waited, and then I went. And then what was cool though was like after that guy, the next person that I met was a really honest guy who wasn't trying to make any bucks off of me at all. He was just sitting there smoking a hookah outside and drinking tea. And he's like, "Oh, where are you? Do you need to go somewhere?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm looking for this hostel." And he just walked me there, and he didn't ask me for anything. He was really cool. He was this older gentleman, and he was the antithesis.
Oh, yeah. I love older people. You know, this is the thing that I realized, especially after you and I went around together. It kind of that's when it all materialized. The fact that best bars are the ones where old people sit and remember the guy who fell asleep when he was while he was watching horse racing.
Yeah, he had us
Uh,
choose horses for him, right?
yeah, so cute. Like this is the
Yeah.
place to be, and you can trust older people, I think, most.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
they don't need to hustle as much anymore.
they don't, yeah.
It's interesting though, because like within that like first hour of arriving, I had the hustler and then I had the genuine person. So
Yeah,
that was my experience of Morocco was a lot of this which one are you right now? And
yeah,
it's like is this person being the genuine person or are they being the hustler? And I feel like that Morocco took me to the breaking point ultimately. I mean, at the end it was really it was a lot. It was a lot. Like there were so many things that happened in that trip.
yeah. I'd go back anytime. Yeah, but you reminded me of something that I completely forgot, but how I came to Morocco, the whole trip, the whole thing. I don't know if I think I told you about it, but it was really wild because we had a car accident on the way there and I had to hitchhike. And you remember?
On the way to, because, oh, did you hitchhike from Slovenia to,
Well, the
or no,
thing
you
is
were
that
driving from Slovenia?
I had a plane. I had a plane from Venice to Fez. Um, and the plane was set at, I don't know, like 11 o'clock in the evening. And my friends and I were in Ljubljana, and they were so excited about this trip of mine because I was saying goodbye to some old things. We had like a tarot reading the night before I went to this. And we had I Ching readings as well, like a whole night of friends doing readings of different kinds uh, to see what's ahead of us. I don't know if anyone believed in it, but it seemed to be like a fun thing to do, especially before someone, would be going on a journey, not knowing when they would come back. The idea was to go for 2 weeks, but then I stayed for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
And the thing is that they made a whole plan. They were really excited. They said, Sasha, we're going to be like 5 people in the car. We're going to take you to Venice airport from Ljubljana. And then we're gonna have a little picnic there in Italy, and then we're gonna come back and you're gonna, just do your thing and catch the plane and go. And I said, yes, let's do it. Um, and at the time we were, it was daytime. We were in the car. We had the trunk full of food and yogurt and whatnot, fruits. And we talked to one of us, a friend of mine, he just got back from India and he elaborated on the whole structure of the gods and goddesses. And he explained, I don't know, about the Ganges River and what the Brahmin is. And we all kind of just floated in the car. We had this like super nice discussion. And at some point, it felt like as if there's, I'm not gonna go out and say there are spirits, but things were a little bit foggy. I don't know, maybe because a friend's just we started entering this dream, conversation about dreams, and the driver um said something about, oh, I dreamt that I did this with the wheel and we had a car accident, and
Oh
then he
no.
really did that with the wheel.
At the same
And there
time.
was a truck on the other side, and then he
Oh.
realized, oh shit. And then he had to avoid the truck, and then he kept doing this with the car, and we went from one side of the highway to the other side of the highway without any control, and we were hitting off, the sides, and I
Oh
could
my
see like
God.
on one side there was a cliff downward, and on the other one there was a forest with trees. None of those options seemed good to like hit, to go to. And at the end, after this dream state of, you know, having a car accident, it did probably didn't last that long, but it did last long as an experience, how we felt it. And then the car turned, completely like this on the other side. Luckily, the truck driver already started slowing down, so he was able to slow down because in the end we were facing him. And luckily, there were no other cars coming from the back somehow. And I remember it was like a movie scene when we got out of the car. We were full of bumps. And luckily, no one was hurt. We were full of bruises and shit, but we were not, hurt. Um, and then somehow an ambulance appears out of nowhere. And they check us. I don't know how they came. Maybe even someone called them. I don't know. Seeing like people driving like this on the highway.
Yeah.
And then they came, they spoke Italian. We didn't understand anything. Someone spoke Latin that I don't know. We tried to kind of figure out where we are at that time. And they towed us, they put us back in the car, and they towed us all the way up to some village, and the car was useless. It couldn't be used anymore. So we were standing there with the little bags with like this rescued fruits, with my friends. And the question is, Sasha, are you going to continue your journey? And then I said, yes. This is not a sign I shouldn't. And I decided to hitchhike to the airport. And my friends decided to take the train and go back to Slovenia. So you know, we each got on our own way. And I hitchhiked a mom with her son. And they actually had a really strong moment between each other because this is when the son decided to go to Barcelona and live there. So he moved, and she was taking him to the airport. And I said, "Oh, this is nice because my flight is also like to Fez via Barcelona, so we can, just go together to the airport." And I thought my plane was at 11, and he said his plane was at 9, and it was 7:30, so we still had time to get there. And so we went to have a pizza first with his best friend who opened a pizzeria. So this guy is saying goodbye to his childhood friends,
Mm.
and his mom, and I'm there like all pale and bruised, kind of confused, not hungry for sure, trying to get my way to the airport so I can go to Fez via Barcelona. And they take me to the I don't eat the pizza, they eat the pizza. It's a bit awkward, and then but it's nice, they're very friendly. And then we get into the car, we get to the Venice airport. I'm already like, yes, halfway there. Um and then I'm saying goodbye to him, but then we both realize that actually it's not different planes that we're taking. We're actually taking the same plane. He had his eye on the boarding time, and I had my eye on the takeoff time. And we realized on this we were on the same plane, and we were like, oh wow, what a coincidence, to hitchhike someone from a small village,
Mhm.
And then I think that the French airport workers were on strike that night. And for a few hours, we couldn't get on the plane. The plane was late because the airspace around France was closed. Um, and we made friends while we were waiting for that plane. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, finally, they say, "Hey, you can board your plane now." And we go up there. And I'm like, okay, so now is the time when I can actually, for real, say goodbye to you. And, we, get on the plane and we look at the tickets and we realize that we're sitting next to each other.
Ah.
And I'm thinking, is this, what am I supposed, should I marry this person now, like in the movies, like what is that? I'm not gonna do it, this is not a destiny thing. Destiny is something you make, still. But
Wow.
it was a really amazing coincidence. And this is the beginning, this is how
Yeah.
Morocco started for me, actually.
Wow.
Uh, and yeah, so this is, it's already like with that mindset, I arrived to Fez, and as you said, there is people who want to take you from the airport to the to wherever you have to go. But I remember that I got really I planned it so well. I even had a little hand-drawn map of Morocco and how I'm supposed to get there. And as if you remember, all the cities have like a wall around them, and there's little doors like Bab
Hmm.
something. And I remember it's the blue door that I was supposed to go through to go to my hostel. And so I went in some taxi with some German women. I don't know. I survived a car accident at that point. And I was like, nothing can, I'm not gonna, I can haggle, I can do whatever, I'm gonna get to my hostel and then sleep for 2 weeks, which kind of, that's what I did. I just slept, read, walked around town, met some people. Um, and then I met you.
Yeah, I'm so like that. I guess you probably did tell me that story, but I'd forgotten it. But
Yeah, I
that's
keep forgetting
incredible.
it myself, but when I remember it, it sounds like it's surreal, like it's not real. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna have to write it down.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of having this kind of conversation is in a way just so we can remember those experiences because I keep on thinking about how what a journey it was, and yet
Yeah.
when I'm trying to make sense of it in my mind, it's really difficult. So I feel like having a conversation about it will help reawaken some things. I mean, there's so many parts of this trip, and I really want to remember it with you. Because like when I remember like to catch up to when we met in Casablanca, I arrived in Tangier and then I stayed just basically a night and I told my friend, the hostel owner, I said, "Hey, I'm in Morocco." He's like, "All right, come to Merzouga. You can stay for free, go on the camel ride." And I'm like, "All right." And he's like, "One thing, can you pick me up some hashish from Chef Shawan?" And I'm like, he's like a Facebook message or something. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable having this conversation. I'm just like, I just didn't reply. I was like, I'll just see what I can do.
Yeah.
So he gave me a route. He was like, go to from Tangier, you go to Chefchaouen and then go to Fez and then to Merzouga. So I ended up passing through Fez, but first I had to go to Chefchaouen. So I basically went to Chefchaouen the next day and also arriving there with taking a bus in, and there's people, of course, wanting to make some kind of business with me. But I get to the hostel, and there was another guy that came with me from Tangier too. So we both traveled together, and we landed in this hostel, and everyone is just smoking these huge joints. You know those Moroccan style joints where it's like they use a regular filter cigarette, and then they take the filter off and then they roll the joint. It's like all this hashish mixed with the tobacco, and then they roll it up and then they stick it back in the filter. But they pull part of the filter out and then they fold it over and put it back in. So that way the filter's not completely working. And there's this like style of these joints, in Morocco that everyone was always smoking. And
Yeah.
that hostel was full of
Local technique.
smoke. Everyone had a huge bag of hash. Like I guess
Yeah.
Chef Shawan, that region is just it's like the pinnacle of hashish production. And they all had these bags of hash. And they're all smoking and smoking. And I remember going actually wait. That's when I met Sylvan and Nico. I met them in Chefchaouen because that's right. They were staying in the van. They were staying in that in the in the Westphalia Volkswagen bus,
Yeah, I
and they were
remember
in a little
that
camp. And I
car.
met them, and Sylvan came over to the hostel even and hung out, and we played guitar one time. And I remember
Uh-huh.
meeting them, and we wanted to go on a mission to buy some hash. And they had a guy that was saying he would go up with us to the hash production place and bring some back. And so we, I remember going to this like car camping area, and then there was this guy wanted to take us up the hill, but we weren't. We were like, no, no, we don't need to. And then we were gonna go with this other Moroccan guy, and he was gonna drive with us up the hill. And so we began to try to do that. And the dude who was waiting at the bottom of the hill was banging on the car, like, don't do this. And he was shouting all these things. We were so terrified. We went back into the camping, and he was just pacing around the outside like an angry, angry, like I don't know, like a beast man. And he was fuming and he wouldn't go in the perimeter. He was just going around and watching and making sure. And we were like, what's going on? And it was like his territory. He didn't want anyone else taking us up to get hashish. He needed to be the guide to take us, and he was protecting his territory. So we
Oh,
ended up not even going. We just went back to town. And I
yeah.
remember just buying some really big ball of hash for like 10 euros worth of hash was like this huge ball. And I remember the guy displaying the quality because he had it in his hand and he put a piece in his hand, this like pollen, it wasn't just the black stuff. It was like green, flowery. And he put it in his hand and he just put the lighter over it and it started bubbling. And he was like, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good stuff. So I bought some and that I was going to take it down to my friend. But before I was able to leave, was overcome with a huge sickness. I guess I should say like something happened before I left Tangier, going to Chefchaouen. When my first day in Tangier, the only day, I was walking around and some young guys were like, "You want hashish? You want to come with us?" And they started taking me everywhere. They took me to some carpet place to look. They took me to some place to look at clothing. They took me to some restaurant because I said, "I just hungry. I want to eat something." They're like, "We'll take you to the best restaurant." They took me to this restaurant and it was empty and it was like I got some chicken thing and it wasn't even very good, and I ate and I'm just like, why am I doing this? I'm just pressured along by these young kids. They're probably like young teenagers. And then
Yeah.
they're like, do you want to buy some hash? Do you want to buy? I'm like, no, I don't want anything more. And then he was like being so friendly to me. And then he's like, you smell bad. I'm done with you. And I'm just like, what is this? This guy's being all friendly to me and he's just taking me all these places. But the moment I don't want to buy this thing, he just completely flipped. And I just remember eating that chicken though. And then a few days later, I got terribly sick. And I'm always
Oh,
wondering, was it that meal that got me sick? Because it was an empty restaurant. And
yeah.
I was terribly sick. I had hives on the outside. I had diarrhea and some vomiting. It was like I was attacked interior and exterior. I was at a bus station or no, I was trying to buy a ticket in a bus place to go to Fez and I remember collapsing on the floor and the people that I went with they just ignored me.
Right.
The people from the hostel, they're such stoners, they didn't even help me. Like finally someone did help me up and I made my way back, but I was so ill. I just had to stay in the hostel and it was raining all the time and I just remember being terribly
Oh,
sick and just like what is going on? Morocco. It was happening to me right
yeah.
there.
Yeah, it's funny. It's but it's a purifying experience at the end of the day, you get sick and you're sick not only physically, but you're sick also from the way how things have been done up to that certain point. And then it's time for cleansing.
Yeah, so I mean, that was just a setup because this whole journey was so full of weird things. Um, I got I got from Chefchaouen to Fez and stayed basically one night uh to prepare to go to Merzouga. Stayed in another hostel. Um, went one day walking around the town. I remember there's some young guys again wanting to help me, show me around, and uh, and they were like so funny because they were really afraid that people would see them walking with us. Like, it was like a small group. They were afraid that people would see them, like cops, I guess, and
Yeah,
because they
probably.
weren't official tour guides. So they wanted to be a tour guide, but they weren't official, and they were really afraid. So we were just be going somewhere, and then suddenly they'd be like, "No, go this way now," and they want us to just move really, just
Oh,
like we couldn't just walk
yeah.
normally, when they were with us. And there was
It's
this
a hustle.
paranoia. And I didn't understand at the time, but I learned progressively in my time in Morocco, like just even being friends with foreigners can be very risky because of all
Yes.
this business stuff and
Yeah,
uh and suspicion and paranoia. And I mean, I think the hashish has some contribution to that
definitely.
personally. I know I got it.
I mean, I feel kind of spared from the whole thing because I have asthma, so I can't smoke anyway. But I can imagine like the air of, calm mixed with this air of nervousness and paranoia. It was all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, the
That's how it
hustle.
the hustle, yeah. It's a hustle.
So I ended up in the hostel. There was these two women that were also going to Merzouga. So we took a ride together to go to Merzouga, and we went to the hostel of the guy, my friend, who had invited me, and he put us up in a beautiful like tent in the back. And I mean, we arrived in the middle, like very early morning, and I remember we just all went in and slept immediately. And then after we had a proper breakfast after like some hours of sleep, and he just had this huge table full of all these foods. It was like mortadella and all this stuff. And then he was bringing out the opium tea, of course, every time, and being very hospitable. And he even gave me that jalaba, that jalaba that I've worn in a
Ah,
lot of my travels. He just gave it to me. He was very generous. I gave him the hash, and he was very happy with that too, because the quality, I
yeah.
guess, is just the best in the Morocco. And we went on the camel ride and into the Sahara Desert, and the typical tourist thing, and take all the pictures.
Yeah.
Um, and after that time, it was like going to the rainbow. So those two ladies were also interested to go to the rainbow. So we decided to hitchhike from Merzouga. And we got a ride with the dude. Like he was like, I'll take you. And so the three of us and him, we all went and we drove all the way, like all the way around to where the rainbow was in another part of the Sahara, this city. No, where was it? It was it was like what was the name of it? Okay, I'm looking here. Taza Fez, Buman. No, Tagun. No, not was it Merzur? There's Merzouga, and then there was
Yeah, it does start with
Tagunit.
it. There are more. I don't know which one.
It wasn't Tagunit, but it was the one before that. I don't remember.
I
It,
also don't know.
it was. Anyway, it was on the edge of the Sahara Desert, and we arrived, and there was this cafe, and the guy was like a rainbow dude, and he had this top hat, and he was like Moroccan guy with his cafe, and he was like, "Come on in, there's plenty of things happening, just wait for the bus to come." And so we were like, well, we don't want to wait for the bus. We just want to get there. So we ended up just driving ourselves, and we were looking for the map, and we're driving and driving. I remember we parked someplace and we were just trying to find it on the GPS, and I was carrying all my bags all the way through. And then the driver of the car, he went back to his car. And then like when I finally found the place, like carrying all of my stuff, he had just driven right there. And I was like, man, I just hiked for an hour in the heat when I could have just stayed in the car. That's Morocco.
It
Uh,
is.
and it was a rainbow gathering, but it was such a, rainbow gathering is such a weird thing every time. And it was basically like a bunch of foreigners and then like probably about 20 Moroccan guys, and there was two Moroccan women, and all of these foreigners from Germany a lot, and mostly I feel like people from Germany and from France, and a few others, and it was like I was like, whoa, what's the Moroccan rainbow family? It's like it's like I was just like I was this is when I start to be like, where are all the women in Morocco? Like I start to really feel that from the day one that I didn't really see women out after dark, and
Yeah.
there are like very difficult to even get to talk to a woman in Morocco. It was like always men everywhere. I just was seeing men, men, men,
Yeah.
men, men. And then when I arrived at the Rainbow, I was like, wow, it's just full of dudes. There's just all these dudes, and I was like, what's going on? Like, what's the culture here that I'm not catching? Because I was so used to being in these places where there was, about 50-50 of men and women, and then
Yeah.
suddenly it's just all these guys everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The presence of men in public life is it's patriarchy, I guess, at its best. Public spaces are reserved for men mostly, and they have always felt more comfortable to be, doing the business, doing the diplomacy and all that, and women did other things, I guess.
One person
But it
said,
depends because I think Casablanca, for example, and Rabat, they
hmm
function differently. You can see differences already. Um, but yeah, in general, definitely you're right. I mean, Casablanca and Rabat are, after all, one is the economic center and the other one is the administrative center. So it's a different urban environment.
it's true. And I feel like also one of the things that I remember thinking about was when you see all these guys in a coffee shop or in a tea shop, and then you think about how like there might be just wanting to escape another kind of situation at home where the it's sort of like the men have control of this public space, but in the home, the women are in control. And so it's like the men go into these tea shops because they don't want their wife or their mother to be like, "You're lazy, you're not working. What are you doing just sitting around?" And but if they go to the tea shop and do it, she won't notice. It's like they want to be able to just and be in a space away from their mother or their wife too. So it's like this weird dynamic of like men and women having
Yeah.
these separate realities and worlds.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell the whole story about the rainbow and all that because it's not really our story. Our journey started in Casablanca and we pretty quickly got on the road from there. Do you remember finding that cat though? Do you remember the cat that was like all dirty?
What? No, I remember arriving to Casablanca with some bus, and then I had to find Gandhi Street
Yeah, Randy.
and Handy, yeah. And then you were there, and then we went and had some tea, and it was nice, but I don't remember a cat.
Yeah, there was this.
But
I'm
wait,
trying.
was it a small cat?
It was like
Like
a little kitten.
a kitten, right? There was something about a kitten. Did
Yeah.
we, was it, but is that, mm, were maybe our hosts looking after a kitten or something? Or was it
Yeah,
us?
I mean I feel like I have these photos of a cat that is like really dirty. And then we're
Oh.
clean in the video, the cat's being cleaned. But I don't know if that you were there yet, but like the people we're staying with, they had a little cat, and I guess we
Uh-huh.
found it anyway. Um
Uh-huh. 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 Okay.
but
Not sure.
it's okay. It's really like a small detail that I just saw the pictures and I was trying to remember what happened. Because when you're
Yeah.
looking back in these photos and you're just trying to understand what's going, where are you? Are you at the mall?
I'm entering a mall. Yeah.
Is that the mall?
It's a mall.
Oh, it's not the one downtown.
I know it's not the one
Yeah,
downtown. I was
it
trying
has
to find
doors.
this place, but I think it's still not open, so I'm gonna just go out again.
I like that
Um,
mall, the downtown malls. I remember going with you when we were
that
in
one is
Macedonia.
special. Yeah, that one is special because that one is actually the first mall in Yugoslavia. It was open in 1974 or something. So it's quite early for shopping mall because Yugoslavia, everyone thinks it's just, it's since it was socialist, there was no stuff, but actually, 1947, here we go. We have a shopping mall. It's not
Yeah,
like the biggest achievement in life, but there it was. So
Actually, that's like, I mean, this is a whole other part, strand that I would like to talk to you about too. And maybe we can take a break from the Morocco talk because I feel like we're talked a lot about Morocco, but there's so many other things that I want to discuss. So we can segue
yeah,
into about Yugoslavia because like when I growing up in the United States, we heard about Yugoslavia and we thought it was like this like bread lines and Iron Curtain kind of
yeah,
pseudo-Soviet world. And then after visiting the XU and seeing, especially when it comes to housing, the amount of housing wealth that people have
yeah.
and the ability to live in a home without having to pay a huge rent or ha all these mortgages.
Yeah,
That's like a cultural thing that's really
that's
thriving from Yugoslavia.
yeah. That's definitely how it was. It's the situation how we encountered it. Now things have changed because there's no Yugoslavia. So right now there are a lot of protests of young people who can't afford housing because also nothing is being constructed. But back in the day, you had the possibility because the it was a whole okay, it started with rebuilding, post-war economy, trying to lift things up and make something out of nothing. So after they declared victory on fascism, what was necessary was to kind of rebuild the country and building housing, factories. Yugoslavia was at the end of the day a modernist project, and that's for the first years after the end of the war, but then it continued because it was a plan economy and people, it was necessary to just provide for the people if you want to have happy people living there. And there were plans, there were constructions of, so many buildings and apartments for people. And not only that, they also had a program where everyone participated in with I think one paycheck. Everyone agreed that they'll just, sacrifice one paycheck um, per year. And they would also collect money with self contributions for the construction of kindergartens and health facilities. So all of the, like, not all, but many of the schools and kindergartens and homes. See, this is like people working behind me. It's morning. Everything woke up around me. It was a nice park with, next to a shopping mall. But now here we are, and you can see actually how things are waking up. So that's also nice. But yeah, so all of the kindergartens and schools and hospitals were built with self-contributions. And this is one of the things. I agree. It was a surprisingly well thought through system, and it worked. Um, Everyone also had the possibility to go to a vacation. Not everyone did go to a vacation because still, of course, there were class differences that were, but at least there were plans to sort this out so that there is a classless society. And Yugoslavia is also one of those places where it was a part of the idea to lose the state, That's why they had this, Edvard Kardel had this political idea of self-management. They introduced it into the constitution and then they started adhering toward it. So all of the workers would be self-managing the factories, and the point was for the workers to also own the means of their production and make decisions and be able to afford their housing. And vacation was considered a part of what's normal for everyone. So that was the goal, Um, so
Did
yeah,
you,
that's Yugoslavia.
what you're saying reminds me of this place that I've been to a few times on Lake Ohrid, and it's called Camp Tresca. And
Aha, wow.
have you been to that?
Yeah, when I was a kid.
So it's basically destroyed now, but you can go there and camp. And so several different times, groups of people, we've gone there and just made our own little camps and stayed there for weeks at a time. And then you can go and explore the collapsed actual camp of Tresca,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there, just along that beach there, it's like a perfect place for travelers and layabouts who don't really like want to have a hotel. They can just go and camp on the beach. And yeah, I just remember that was a worker camp for I don't know what they
Yep.
made, but it was like some furniture company or something like that. And
Yes,
they had
yes.
it was like for their vacationing workers they created a camp.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're right. And there's so many of these camps actually. I don't know. The whole coast kind of is scattered, they're scattered all over and you can see them. And they're all ruined now. And there are even attempts to kind of attract let's say foreign investments because that's, what what can be done at this point. But I don't know. So far, this has not been the case, and I also don't think it's a good idea because at the end of the day, a lot of facilities that were bought off by foreign investors ended up um, ruined
Yeah.
because they're being bought, and then there's speculations with
Mm,
this real estate, and in the end, the businessman just declares himself to be unable and I don't know, resells it to someone and then the value goes up, but it's just an empty shell and it's not being put in use by people. But at the same time, it's not remodeled, it's
mm,
not,
right.
used for anything, and there's no potential for it being used. And on the other hand, someone is getting their pockets full of money. So
It's being treated like an asset rather
it's
than
being
a
treated like
place.
an asset. Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
same
And
thing's happening here.
if by any chance something is constructed there, it just looks bad
Yeah.
and it's not available for the
Mm,
local population at all. It's probably done with some bad materials and, you know, there's nothing,
yeah.
again, nothing you can do with that kind of a thing, and it looks really ugly also. Usually it's made
Yeah.
of glass and
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like private and made
Yeah.
in a shoddy way because it's like this
Yeah.
private equity. Private equity is what I'm starting to understand that this enshittification of everything, a lot of it is because of these private equity companies. And the same thing happening in the United States. There's been several different companies now who have gone bankrupt recently. And when people investigate it, it's because that company, like Joanne Fabrics is one company here where it's a fabric company and they sell textiles for people to do sewing projects and things like that. And they're
Yeah.
a national company. They were doing fine. They were a performing business. They weren't in the red. They were actually
Uh-huh.
turning a profit. And then
Yeah.
they got bought out by a private equity company who then who use a loan. They basically took a
Uh-huh.
loan to buy Joanne Fabrics, and then they saddled Joanne Fabrics with that loan. So they bought the
There you go.
company, and then
There
Joanne
you go.
Fabrics now
Yeah.
owns $2 billion that company borrowed to buy them. And then
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
bankrupt, and then now they're
Yeah.
liquidated because they
Exactly. This is
it's
what
like
happened. This is what
what?
happened. Yeah.
They didn't
All the
take that debt. They
factories
were
fell apart.
sold.
Yeah. Exactly. This is what happened to all the factories. Like what you described perfectly. You buy them off with like borrowed money, and then there's like a debt, and then you inherit a debt, and then you have to fire your workers, which is called optimization or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, in the end, you can just close the door because you're out of business. And that's how most things fell apart here. How so many people lost their jobs. Um, in after Yugoslavia during the transition. Um, but it is refreshing to at least see these leftovers from the past as perhaps possibilities for some other future.
I was just amazed by the quality of workmanship of the Yugoslavian era because I had spent some time in
Yeah.
Switzerland and I was really impressed with the way that buildings were made in Switzerland. They were always very thick walls and made to last. And then when I was in
Yeah.
Croatia the first time, I was struck that it really reminded me a lot about Switzerland. Like I was looking at the way these buildings were made and I thought this is reminding me a lot of Swiss construction in that it's built with this meant to last mentality. And I mean, here
Yeah.
in the US, they're always building all these buildings. They're just made out of plywood and pine
Yeah.
pieces of pine wood, and you could just take a bulldozer and knock them over. But these other buildings, these Yugoslavian buildings, you could not just knock it over. They're very strong. They're
Yeah,
really well
no, it's
made.
made to last. It's made to last, definitely. Yeah.
And I mean, you were born in during Yugoslavia. I mean, you were very young, right? Like when
Yeah,
you.
Chernobyl, 1986. I was born in 1986. But I do remember because, when things fall apart, they don't fall apart in one particular moment only. Um, and especially if you grew up like me, for example, in Macedonia, things were a little bit, it took time for the chaos to arrive. And we went to this slow kind of uh deterioration process. So I still remember, and there are still like right now, what's happening right now is the final foundations of what was set up in Yugoslavia that is falling apart. So at the time um it was still good, I remember as a kid there was still this aura of hope that things were functioning. So the health and education systems and infrastructure and transport buildings were still relatively new. Um, and 35 years later, you can see that things have not been maintained or have been taken apart. So there is now private health care and it's not really working and people are getting sick and there's corruption in society
Yeah,
and
bus
the
platforms
whole
are
thing.
collapsing. Like in Serbia, the whole protest
Yeah.
came from a collapsing bus platform.
Yeah, exactly. And in Macedonia, there was a huge tragedy recently with 60 people dying in a fire because, and they were like young kids. It was a discotheque.
Mm,
But the problem was there was a concert in this older building. It used to be a carpet, factory or, I don't
a
know, some sort
warehouse.
of for warehouse facility. And it caught fire and then
Oh,
60 people died and 100 were hurt, and this is something that has not been maintained and there's no standards of security and so on. The only standard of security that is being held up is the whole NATO and militarizing society, like this is something that is functioning, but the actual safety and security of people from things falling on their heads, it's not something that governments look after at the
mm,
end of the day. At least that's the impression that people get.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, you growing up in this time of turmoil. I remember you were telling me some stories about that because I mean, going from Macedonia to Slovenia, was that, I
Yeah.
mean, did you guys go there to Slovenia around that time? Kind of like this is going to be our best shot at being safe during all of the upheaval.
The other way around, actually. When Yugoslavia fell apart, we left Slovenia because that's where the whole mess kind of started, and we
Mm,
didn't know what's gonna be happening. Um, and then we took a train. I only found out recently that during the initial days when the war in Slovenia, I think it lasted for around 10, I don't know, 10 days or something. Um, during those initial days, part of the population went in bunkers underground, and me and my mom were a part of that. Uh, and then we had to take this train to come to Skopje, to Macedonia, to be far from what would then turn out to be not such a deadly conflict in Slovenia, but then in Croatia and in Bosnia, things went really bad. And I
mm,
remember sitting at home at my grandma's place, looking at the news. It was Bosnia, it was Rwanda, East Timor. It
yeah.
was the Zapatista revolution also. I remember them coming up on
Mm.
TV. And what else was trendy at the time? The Kurdish
Kosovo.
rebellion, Kosovo, yeah, after in 1999. So yeah, this is the The 90s. I don't know. It's really funky because now I'm officially also researching the 90s as part of my job. And it's funny to kind of put a mirror on those things that you remember as a kid and see if it really was like that, the way you remember it, or if what other factors are involved in
Hmm.
what was happening in the 90s. So it's
In
fun. History is fun.
Interesting. Why are you
Yeah.
researching the 90s in particular with your work? What's the
Well,
context?
the gist of it is, so there was state socialism and it fell apart. And during state socialism, you had a really like strong Marxists and, socialists, um, coming up with a society, and a way of life and a socialist human. So there was like a whole set of values. And then 1989 happened, and then the Berlin Wall came down, and state socialism fell apart. And in Yugoslavia, which was, as we spoke now, it's a bit special because it was still kind of it did function through a market economy, even though it was a socialist state. So it was open toward East and West, and it was part of the non-aligned movement. One of the founders of the non-aligned movement. So it had a lot of like strong ties with the Middle East and so on, and there was a lot of internationalist um, spirit, and action as well being done. But then, what happens next, right? So, what I'm working on is to figure out who and what maintained, if at all, the values of, um, spirit of, socialism, anarchism, Marxism, and so on. Like what maintained the values that are behind these ideologies, if at all. So this is like solidarity and um I don't know, like rebellion against this military, war machine,
Hmm.
and equality and just fairness, justice, and so on. So what happened next in the sense of who and what are these elements of society um, that were active in a way? And you can see that if, for example, in Yugoslavia, you had these, everyone was kind of involved in building this commons, the society. Then here we have youth activists. Um, and this is the topic of, actually, it's a PhD. So it's going to be activist alliances and the new left in post-Yugoslav space.
Hmm.
So then what is this left that appears at a certain point? And is it or is it not relating itself to Yugoslavia? And where does it come from? How does it position itself also globally? Because we know there are different trends, especially after the crisis, financial crisis in 2008, you have a lot of backlash on behalf of people. They don't want to pay for the saving banks that have robbed them of their life savings, and so
Hmm.
Syriza then enters the stage from Greece, and there's a little bit of a window of opportunity for the European left um, to gain a stronger position, but then chaos ensues again. And then to see how these things have been changing throughout time. So I'm researching the peace movements in the 90s and the feminist movements, and then the 2000s with movements against wars, like the war in Iraq. And then after that, what happened was a lot of different rebellions and anti-systemic actions that occurred. So it's quite a journey.
Nice. So you're going for your PhD?
Yes, it's a new thing. It's
Cool.
yeah.
That's great.
But it gives me a chance to, it's weird also because it gives me a chance to understand my childhood from a whole different perspective, and the people around me and this whole space. Um, and so yeah, I think it's priceless actually to have the opportunity to really do this kind of research.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
it's a very it is an interesting topic. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, looking into what happened with Yugoslavia, I remember digging around and I found some report from a guy who was a CIA agent, and he said that at one point in time he had been told to interrogate Serbians about Bosnian separatists, or and then and interrogate. No, he was interrogating Bosnians about Serbian separatists, or so somehow like basically he was asking all these questions about Serbs to Bosnians, and then it turned out dug down, there was no Serb agitators. He was just instilling the fear by asking questions about them.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
there was a lot of effort to dismantle Yugoslavia from the outside because it was very threatening to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
I bet.
system.
Yeah, I bet. I'm trying to find a place where there's no loudspeakers because there's now
Okay.
loudspeakers everywhere.
Well, I haven't really even noticed any weird noises or anything in my headphones, but I guess maybe on your end
Yeah, I
there's
can
more.
hear a lot of noise. I mean, I'm trying to because it's easier for me to focus if there's not that much
That's
noise.
true.
Um,
It's kind of fun to get the tour also.
Pretty difficult. Yeah, you get to see around, right? It's quite chunky. Yeah. Um, but I think, yeah, I think it should be fine here. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, let's try it. So I
Yeah,
was
that's
thinking, and when you were just talking about, also made me remember about Morocco because I mean, I feel like I had so many experiences of these guys just coming to me trying to get money and being so annoyed with it. But then
yes.
again, I'm this Western person coming into Morocco, which is a country that has a lot of
Yeah,
oppression, and these guys are just trying to survive, and the hustling is
yeah,
all that they know how to do. And foreigners
yeah,
coming in are like just the easiest way to get some income to make a life, and just try to get as much as you can because
yeah,
it's a sense of desperation. And I remember just talking to when I was able to make real friends, not just people trying to hustle me, and talking to them, they really expressed a lot of those things about how just even the police, the way they would treat a Moroccan person versus a tourist, and the way they would talk to them, and just
yeah,
be very rude and disrespectful to just, a poor Moroccan person would just be treated like dirt, and the tourist is this kind of valuable, protected asset because you don't want to scare the tourists away. You want to make sure they keep
yeah,
coming and feeling safe, and so.
yeah,
But then the people that live there themselves a lot of times don't even feel safe, and they don't feel like they can go anywhere. They can barely travel outside of the country. I mean, okay, they can go to Turkey, they can go to Brazil, and maybe a Svalbard or something like that, where anyone can go, but no one can get to. And a
yeah,
Moroccan person can barely fly anywhere. It's so expensive.
yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And it's not only that, they don't get visas, like you have to get a
yeah.
visa to get to a place. But I think after the Maastricht Agreement in 1993, it's when things changed a lot for a lot of people because at that point also the visa regime started changing, right? So you had the idea to kind of have an open Europe with no borders,
Hmm.
but the more Europe was opening borders on the inside, it was closing them off on the outside with
Hmm.
like these really strange, well, not strange, but sneaky ways, right? So it was required that people have a visa. You have to pay for it. You can also get rejected, and a lot of people get rejected. Most people get rejected because they're not coming from the rich world, right?
Hmm.
And also, you have to have a lot of money on your account. You have to provide. This is what I learned later on that they have these extra environments that you have to, show that you have enough money on your account, just so that, the officials can make sure that you're not coming to Europe to stay, right? And it's even more difficult. And the thing is, like Morocco, Europe, the whole Maghrebi region, Middle East, it's really close to Europe. And then this is why they get the hardest border in a
Hmm.
way. It's easier maybe even for people to come from like Thailand. I don't know, like now we can see also people are coming from the Philippines, but only in the role of workers, right?
Yeah, nurses.
Um, Nurses, right? So all the jobs that rich Europeans don't want to do, and their kids, they don't want to do, but they need these services, and so you get this like population that is stuck, right? Um, they have been exploited for a really long time. For example, Morocco is still paying taxes to France. I don't know
Hmm.
why. Like it's just insane. Um, but ex-colonies, for example, are still being exploited, but at the same time, they're having this wall and they're not welcome to, set the rules of the game as well, they're not equal in this trade, right? And what I learned recently as well, because I went to Egypt recently, is you could see how tourism is also not functioning well anymore. There's not as many tourists. Hala? There's not as many tourists anymore. People don't go because it's because of what you just described, They don't even want to deal with the hustling and they don't want to see um they don't want to feel like that, like approached to and in a way pushed into certain decisions.
Hmm.
And another thing is that I also don't think they want to see poverty. Like right now, if you walk the streets, you can see also the what's a huge part of society,
Hmm.
but the trendy thing right now is for tourists to go to these special, you go directly from the bus or from the plane to an Airbnb, and then, you're there at your infinity pool for a week and you're drinking
Yeah.
cocktails and then you go back home.
Like a
This is
Disney
the
World
tourism
kind
that
of
is trendy.
thing.
Yeah, right. So it's not anymore about going to the streets and taking like the local transport and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, so this is why it's all connected somehow, is what I'm trying to say. And this is how the hustle is connected, and this is why economies are failing as well. For example, Egypt has based a lot of their economy on tourism, and now they're facing hard times. There are a lot of these pension places
Hmm.
that don't really they're empty. You can only play the pyramid card for so long,
Yeah, the
and
pyramid.
like young generations aren't interested in it anymore. I'm thinking, I don't know.
Mm.
So it's really hard. It's a really hard hustle to survive in the Maghreb region, yeah, and Morocco is a part of it.
I mean, okay, so let's see.
Morocco.
Morocco, yeah, all right. We met in Casablanca. We started hitchhiking. We
Yes.
got to Marrakesh. Do you remember the first ride that we took? Do you remember, like,
No.
do you remember anything about it? Let me look at my photos here because
I can't remember because I know we took buses and trucks and we hitchhiked a whole
hmm
bunch of different vehicles. Um, but I don't know which is which.
it's kind of a blur, isn't it? I'm trying to look at my
Yeah.
photos here to get an idea because I know we did take some pictures of. All right, so I've got some photos here I'm looking at. I don't know how to do the screen sharing very well, but looks like we're in Casablanca. There was a concert that we saw, I think.
Yeah, yeah, there was a concert. It was really nice. It was the Saharan blues kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I think it was it
Amazing.
Was it Tini Warren?
Tinariwen,
Tinari Wen? Was it them or was it something
I
similar?
think something similar.
It was
Um,
cool.
but I did see Tinariwen. I had a chance to see them in Slovenia, and it's amazing. I miss that vibe, the way how music is
Hmm.
structured, that it sounds like you can hear, the camels coming, It's like this
Yeah.
slow kind of travel journey. Oh shit. Okay.
That yeah,
Uh
that it's like
journey kind of.
that guitar. There's a certain way
Yeah.
they tune the guitar. I think they tune up the low string to make it a G, and then there's this kind
Huh.
of different
And they
vibe.
have like these instruments, taka-tak, taka-tak,
Mm.
taka-tak, taka-tak, that like it's not drums, it's like these
Hmm.
little small castanets type of instrument that makes the sound of um yeah,
So yeah,
taking it easy.
I guess
Yeah.
we don't have to go through the whole story like it's
No,
we can tell stories in a postmodern way and just take the fragments as they come and just our impressions. I mean, I remember going to in Marrakesh, my biggest impression was that one big square, and there was all these people in the middle there.
Mhm.
Just it was like a circus of performers, and you had the people with the snakes, and then there was
Yeah.
musicians. And I remember being a musician too, and like doing starting to do street music because I think at that point I was really running out of money. I had a little bit of money when I entered the country, and it was very quickly disappearing. And
Yeah.
I got hustled out of all kinds, buying jewelry or whatever it was, paying for buses. And hitchhiking was starting to become not only an interesting thing to do, but a necessity. And doing some street music started to become very important. And I remember just making it my busking, going out in the morning. That became the thing to do, to just try to busk in the mornings. I think you would go. I would like you would go into some cafe and sit with some old guys drinking tea and coffee, and then I would go busking. I think that was kind of a routine that we had in a few different locations.
Yeah, but I always wanted to join in a way and help, with whatever, but I didn't have skills at the time. The skills only came later.
It's true.
Um
We did have
yeah,
that one
I wanted
time.
to dance,
Remember when we got to Spain at the end? I remember we did that one busk. We did one performance in Spain at in not in before we got to Granada, but it in what's the name of it? What town
Khadija,
on the
no. What?
sea? No, it was uh what
La
is
Linea, you mean, or
no, it was
where, which?
on the on uh eh 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 just what's the name of it? Uh
I don't even remember what.
Malaga. Yeah, we
Oh
went to
yeah, that's right. We
Malaga.
went to Malaga. Yeah.
And
Oh, I
then we were
remember that.
remember that we were at that like walkway with the covering and you were like you had got some dress and you were like, how about I just dance when you play music? And I was like, I remember we were so grumpy all the time. I was just like, all right, fine, let's try it. And it was just like and then we got some tips and I was like, yeah, I just remember thinking, man, we could have been doing that the whole time.
Yeah, we could have been doing that all
We could have
day.
just been doing that the whole time. But
Yeah,
it's
I don't
funny
know. Yeah, you
at the
learn,
end
you
of the
live and
journey,
learn.
like
Yeah.
the last chance, and then it was like, ah, that would have been good. We probably would have gotten a lot of tips that way, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I don't know. We didn't think of it. And also I didn't have the dress. So,
that's true. I
yeah.
yeah, I remember that was really important. I mean, we were going from place to place. We were in Casablanca, we went to Marrakesh, we
Marrakesh.
went to Rabat,
Yeah.
we went to
Essaouira.
Essaouira. Yeah, a lot of time at Essaouira. That was definitely
Oh, what a
a
place.
place to
Oh
spend a lot of
dear.
time.
I mean, I remember like the food, this is how I marked which is funny because I'm not even such a food fan, but I remember in Fez, I ate a lot of chicken sandwiches.
Hmm.
Because there was this guy on in a small street somewhere making the most amazing chicken sandwiches with like these spices and fresh fruits and stuff. I mean, not fruits, veggies. Um, and then I remember, okay, Casablanca, we ate like, I don't know, in different places. We also ate at home. But then I remember Essaouira because of the fish
Oh
sandwiches.
yeah,
They were so good. And
yeah.
the tagine
Hmm.
and the orange juice, fresh orange juice and yeah, stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I have that memory.
Yeah, I
And the
remember playing
pirates along the way that
of the
they're
pirates.
sitting there so that you want to, so that they make you want to take a photo with them and then you
Yeah.
give them a small tip and stuff.
Yeah, there was that one
Uh,
really cool looking dude. He was just like
that's a
this
good way to
little
earn
old
money.
man with sunglasses and a sailor cap. And I just
That
remember
sailor
we were
cap
like,
and
that
like
guy's so
long
cool.
beards. They had like these long beards and they were, dressed funny and they're there so the tourists can take photos with them.
Mm,
And it's a job, looking cool at
yeah.
the
Yeah, he definitely did look cool. I
Remember
remember
that
doing street
French
music.
lady? in
Oh
Essaouira.
man. Oh man, yeah.
And
She was so wild because we could barely communicate. It was like
you
you
were so
could understand
traumatized by her.
both of our French, both of you and me together. It was like the odd couple. Like you could understand what she was saying, and I could sort of make speak something in French, and we were trying to figure out how to communicate with her. Yeah, that was so wild. We were at a restaurant eating the fish sandwiches probably on the roof,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
uh
yeah.
and
And
then
then
she
she was
invited
there.
us to her house, and
Yeah.
then she
And then
so
she
she,
regretted it.
yeah. Yeah, like a day later, she's coming back and she was just like, "You need to leave. I don't know." And then we just went back to the president or whatever. What was the name of that? What was the hotel that we stayed in the most in Essaouira? Do you remember the name? Was it the
No,
president
no,
or the
no, no
palace or
names for
something like
me.
that? I
The
just
what
remember
house?
we the palace or the president or it was the cheapest hotel. I think we shared a room for €7 a night
Yeah,
and
we did. We shared a room. Is it the one on the
on on
rooftop
the
with the
rooftop, and we
painters?
could
With
do it our
yeah,
laundry. I remember hanging laundry out there too on that when the wind
yeah, I
was blowing it
remember
all
it because
around.
yeah, there were also some painters that kind of permanently
Hmm.
lived there at the top. You
That's
know what
right.
my favorite memory of that is actually? Um, well, and maybe only memory, I don't even know, but like sleeping in the night and then waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning with this soft whisper prayer
Hmm.
that we
Oh
could
yeah.
hear from the mosque really nearby. And it was the most beautiful thing. It kind of wakes you up. It makes you feel really pleasant and good. And then it also soothes you back into sleep. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, that particular
Uh,
prayer call, the
yeah.
one in the really wee hours of the night or morning,
Yeah.
that one is a very gentle one, and it's like
Yeah.
it's sort
Yeah.
of it always feels really far away,
It
and
does.
kind of
Yeah.
in your dreams, it's just helping your dreams along.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I mean, Essaouira is a really interesting town. It's got all this. Everyone's always talking about Jimi Hendrix too, and somehow it's like
He
this
went there
Jimi
once and
Hendrix.
had a concert and yeah, and it was really good.
And everyone just
Um,
can't get over it. It was like
but
Jimi
it really
Hendrix
left an
came.
impression on the town, you know. This is the town where you go to, feel free and listen to I don't know what kind of music and meet people. And this is the the vibe of the whole town up until today, that's why we had, I think, a blast, in Essaouira. It was really, really good. And there's this bar, if you remember, we went with the French lady, and it has this whole like Cuban setup,
Yeah.
and it has books, and it's kind of like a library bar with a lot of, praising Cuba, and I think that was really also brilliant. And I think the owner is full of stories. I didn't get to talk to the owner,
Hmm.
but they told me I have to talk to the owner, so I hope he's still alive and we can revisit.
Yeah, I remember like doing street music one time in the fish market, and someone gave me a bag of sardines.
Yeah. And you know what? They always thought that, at least for me, they thought I was underfed and sick because I'm skinny. And I remember just getting food from everyone, They were like, yes, come here. You don't look good. You need food. Here it is. And,
Eat,
they throw it
eat.
at you. Eat. Yeah. And I remember, I don't know which town in Morocco it was. Um, I don't know where you were. I just went, I remember going to a market and I sat down to have this lentils meal. I forgot the name, how they call it. And I was sitting there with some old people, of course, and I was eating my lentils, and next to me was the marketplace. So on this side, you had like a guy selling olives, and another guy selling tomatoes, and another guy selling cucumbers. And as I'm eating, the guy that is like selling olives, he looks at me and he's like, ugh. And he grabs a lot of olives with his little shovel, like his little plastic shovel, and he just pours all of the olives, like 20 olives, into lentils so that I eat more, so that I get olives and salad, and I look at him with my mouth full, like, thank you, why you didn't have, why do you do that? It's so nice. And they were really tasty. Um, so yeah, the marketplaces,
Mm. Yeah, I remember that like always
kindness.
I love olives. I really miss the plenitude of olives
Oh,
from Mediterranean region.
yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
Yes,
all of the different kinds of
all of the
olives.
kinds. They're
All of
all good
them.
in their own way. It's just, it's wild.
And
Yeah.
so I remember one time we hitchhiked with a trucker and his little brother, and they stopped us and bought a whole meal and fed us like some kind of lamb.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. I remember it. Yeah.
That was really sweet.
You know what I don't understand? Like, I don't remember how we spoke to people because it's not like we speak Arabic, we tried, but
Mm-hmm.
it was really, I found a photo the other day of how we tried to write the names of the cities where we hitchhiked in Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think we may have made some effort, but and they speak a lot of languages. Usually they speak Italian and Spanish and English
Yeah.
and all that. But most of the communication I remember just happened with looks and hands, This is the thing I remember the
Mm-hmm.
most, like the gestures.
I
Probably
think
we were gesturing, no, no, you don't, please don't get us food. And they were like, yes, yes, you should get food with us. And that's what I remember. I don't know the language. I just know
yeah.
the vibe,
I feel like that when two parties or when people have a will to communicate in their heart, then they'll be able to. And if they don't
Yeah.
care, then they won't be able to. So you don't, the language is secondary and the emotion is the primary thing. If people really want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
understand one another, they're going to figure it out even with
Yeah.
very limited language. I know for me, my French was very limited, but somehow when I would try to speak French with Moroccan people, they would understand me clearly, but a French person would not. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting when it's not your native language. French is
Yeah.
easier. It's like people, native speakers can't understand a non-native speaker's accent as well as a non-native speaker can understand another non-native speaker.
True. Yeah. And it's nice because then in the end we all understand each other. The ones that are not native is a lot of, it's funny how a language in its origin, in its original role doesn't do the same job as it does in its transformed version.
Yeah, like international English is so different than native
Yeah.
English, but it's very
Yeah.
useful for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
it's always interesting to hear a bunch of people talking together in English and none of them speak it natively, but it works because everyone knows
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
When it
True.
comes to our trip in Morocco, though, I mean, we did hitchhike a lot of different things. We hitchhiked cars and trucks, and I think we got a ride even with like a kind of motorcycle thing one time. It was like a motorcycle with a little truck bed back. Remember that? Getting a ride with
Yeah.
a motorcycle back, like a
Yeah.
truck motorcycle, and then
And I think we were a donkey. I don't know why. I think we went with the donkey at a certain
I
point.
don't know if we were. I don't remember hitchhiking a donkey.
Yeah.
I don't know, or is there a donkey in the were we in a van with a donkey? I don't know.
Yeah, there was a donkey involved. I don't know. It took a while. Oh, remember, it was a small village. We had to get out to get to a certain place, and there was this old guy who offered to take us. It was a cart, and the donkey was carrying the cart,
Oh yeah.
and we went on it, and it was beautiful. It was lovely. I miss it. I'd do it again.
Do you remember that time when we camped? We like got somewhere and then we slept in the tent that night. And then in the morning there it was or in the night there was like this warmth and it was a dog sleeping against our
Yes,
heads. Do you
yes.
remember
But
that?
you know what happened? That I keep telling this. This is one of the things that I really do remember because it's and I love to share this story with a lot of people as the I think one of the most beautiful things I've seen in my life because of the morning, but the
Mhm.
whole setup is really relevant as well because it was dark. We were grumpy a lot on that trip. Um And I think it's good that it was that way because a lot of things kind of came out, you know? And we were free to be grumpy along the way, which is something that is really important. You know, you didn't have to feel to hide it or something. You just
Right.
could, work through it. And that was the whole trip. But I remember us being grumpy, trying to find a ride, and we couldn't find the ride. And then we went to find a place to sleep, and it was already getting dark. And we could see on the as we walked the street to our right, there was something that looked like a field, and we weren't sure if it was wet kind of surface or if it was grass or if it was sand or what was it. And there were trees in the background. And then we went all over all the way there, set up the tent, went to sleep. And then there was this dog that wandered, like around the tent and behind the tent, and it was barking at people. And then I thought, oh, wow, this dog is kind of maybe protecting the tent at this point because it sniffed us. And I remember it coming really close because as you're sleeping, this is the edge of the tent, like your head is actually the tent. And on the other side of this really thin fabric, there's the dog. And
Yeah.
it sniffed us. And I think it realized kind of that we're, grumpy but friendly. And at a certain point in the night, I even felt it. I think it laid on the ground and it kind of leaned on the tent, so it was leaning against my head. Do you remember that? Did I tell
Yeah.
you about that? Yeah, it
I
was
mean, I feel like
we
I
were
felt it
leaning onto
too.
each other.
We talked about it in the morning, and it was like a dream to me.
Yeah, and then some guys like went in the back and the dog just ran off and barked at them. And then in the morning when we woke up and we opened the tent and we see this beautiful field with argan trees or olive tree. I think it were argan trees, and there were goats eating trash and, like branches of stuff. And then there was this little kid that was like the shepherd, and this little puppy that was
Hmm.
also like the shepherd puppy, dog, and it was super cute. And I remember putting amlu on a piece of bread, and I gave it
Yeah,
to the kid, and the kid took it and ate it, and we all ate breakfast, and it was
that's
amazing.
right. We always had the amlu and the hobs, the bread, this
Yeah.
flat bread, and then this amlu, which is like, I guess like a kind of a peanut butter with like a oily peanut butter
It's
sauce
almond
almond.
butter
What did you? There's some that was with
with
peanuts,
honey.
but then you got that fancy one. You got that fancy I remember
The
you're
fancy
like you got
almond.
the fancy one. You're like, should I get this? At the
But it was
fancy
a
omelet place. It was
good
good.
almond.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
the next level one when the almond
Yeah.
one.
Just the mixture of almonds and honey. I don't know. It's wild how they put this together. It's just it worked. It kept us really full for a really long time.
Yeah.
But we did really like, if you remember, going to the marketplace and buying a msemen.
Oh yeah.
Msemen, this like msemen. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the flatbread with different like butter and cheese. There
Is
was
that
no
what it is?
cheese. It was just this like this um melted cheese. That's the only
Mm,
cheese you can get,
okay.
right?
I guess.
Remember?
Yeah, I think I do remember that.
Yeah, because they don't produce milk. There is no cows because it's like desert, and then
Hmm.
there is the sea and so on. But so they can have goats, but they cannot have cows, and all of this industry. So that's why they
Hmm.
import the cheese, and it's really expensive, and it's only a few brand names.
Oh, that's right, because there's
Um,
always be those it was always those little like
the little
triangles
one.
of cheese
The
in
triangle, yeah, 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 those ones,
the
yeah.
tin
And remember,
foil.
we had like salmon with the little triangle cheese that we would put. It's the
That's
melted
right.
cheese, and this was the import. And kiri, I don't know, like that's how they call it, or that maybe that was the brand. I don't know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
good
that's
time.
funny. But then so we we realized we had, we wanted to leave Morocco, and we had our ultimate challenge, which was when we got to we had heard some stories about people hitchhiking the ferry boat. and
Yeah.
we were like, let's try to hitchhike the ferry.
Yeah,
So
let's hitch. Why not? Yeah, hitchhike a boat.
we
Yeah. Oh God, yes. I think we were protected. I think from the very beginning of
gosh,
this
we're
trip
so foolish.
and the whole car accident and Brahman and all the Indian gods, and then, like the protection, of not getting hurt on the way there,
Yeah.
and then the dog protecting us. And in the end, with this hitchhiking trip, remember we couldn't do it in the beginning. It was Ramadan. I don't know. People were upset during the day, but happy during the night because of the whole meal availability. And and I think you were online with your friend Kat,
Oh,
uh,
that's right. Okay.
so
Yeah,
that she
you
can
remember
say
you.
a prayer to this god of I don't know
Oh,
what.
Ganesh. It was for
Ganesh, yeah,
Ganesh.
Ganesh, for good luck so that we can hitch that boat and get that ride and get on the other side. And it worked the end. And even it worked. It was so amazing. We sat there and we waited. We were persistent.
Yeah. Because they didn't want to
And
let we were like, just let us get onto it. Let's go to the yard with the trucks, and then one of them will
yeah,
let us ride. And they're like, we
no, they
can't let you
didn't
do
let
that.
us.
You need to
Yeah.
have your passport checked first. And they're like, we're like, well, let us do that then. And they're like, well, we can't let you do that without a ticket. And it was just this back and
Yeah,
forth
and you
with them.
stayed over a little bit, I think, for a day or something.
I
And
was
I don't
one day over. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
but it's not a big deal. But we were really afraid. And also when they were we tried like with this guy who was giving off tickets to like get a ticket, and then he was like, "No." But then he left. There was a
Oh
change
yeah.
of shift. And then these like six or seven happy guys came.
Hmm.
And then we asked again, and four of them were grumpy, but three of them were like, "Hey, maybe we can do something." And then they started competing between each other, like who can help us more. And it was a weird psychology thing that happened at that point because it was enough for one of them to want to help us.
Yeah.
It provoked this reaction with other workers there to want to help us. And then I remember the moment when they made a phone call or something, and our guy came, and I don't know if you remember him. A guy came to take our passports and give
Gosh.
us tickets.
Yeah.
And
And
the
he was
guy who
gone for
came,
a long time, right?
he wore like all jeans. Remember, he had like jeans jacket and jeans lederhosen, and the jeans pants, and
I
even
don't
his
remember
shoes
that
were like
detail.
bluish jeans. It was just jeans, and I was looking at him like, whoa, that's a fashion statement. And then he disappeared somewhere with our passports, and it took him a while.
Yeah.
But then when he came back, he had our passports with tickets. And they
Child
gave us
tickets.
these free child tickets. It said that I was born in 2000, I don't know, 7 or something, 17. I don't know, like child tickets. And then we took our boat, and we were super hungry. If you remember, we went there and we sat there, and there was like this restaurant area, and we were super super starving. I don't know, at least I was.
Yeah.
And there was a group of sportsmen like right next to us on the table, and I remember looking at them like, look at them eating, like they're having so much fun eating. It looks so good. And I think they could see or feel our energy, and they invited us over, and then they offered us food. I was super happy. It was like the
Oh my
happiest
gosh.
day.
Oh man, we really deserve those children's seats because we could not take care of ourselves that day. It's
No, yeah,
like,
that
oh
day was
gosh.
out.
I mean, it's like when you're living in those moments, you're just trying to survive. You're trying to do anything, and then coming from a different perspective now, where I have stability and I have ability to earn money and things, and I'm thinking, wow, I was really just like put myself out there and I was just
Yeah,
just throw yourself into this completely vulnerable situation where
yeah,
I mean it's a form of stupidity I suppose, but it's like the holy
yeah,
fool, like the fool in the tarot. You, I do want people to be responsible, but I also know that
yeah,
sometimes you just have to go out and see the world, and no matter what, and just like
yeah,
see how the universe will handle you eh,
Yes.
right with your nose to the grindstone, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
raw dog
And
the reality.
also, yeah, I mean, and also it would be nice to be aware of what's happening, but in the moment you're not. But at the same time, it is a form of stupidity, but at the same time, it's also um discovering trust, seeing where and how it works and how it still is out there and how to nurture it, for yourself as well. And it's all just an interesting exploration of possibilities of human relations and ways of life.
Mm,
Um, but it can also have hard and heavy consequences. And sometimes people are not that lucky.
yeah.
So it's really it's a gamble in a way as well.
One thing
It's
I learned a lot about was this kind of needing to feel independent because especially when you're traveling in a foreign land, when you're so needing other people to help you all the time, it's like a drag on your personal power I think those experiences because this was a pretty early in my travel still, I guess it was 2018. So it was in the first half of my 8 years, and I was sort of I think that it took me to that whole experience, especially having to hitchhike the ferry and everything, and really took me to this level of understanding that I need to really figure out how to take care of myself better because I start to realize that you can't just you okay, people will help you. People are helpful.
yeah.
But if you go through your life just thinking everyone's going to help me all the time and I don't need to take care of anything, that's just going to end up in a situation where that might not be true anymore. It's like don't
Yes,
don't
yes.
test your luck too much.
Yes, exactly. And also one really important thing is that I think it's really important and valuable to experience uh being helped. Um but the end game is to put yourself in a position to help others.
Hmm.
I think that we should at least kind of gain these like um skills to be able to provide for people who can't at the moment or are lost or whatnot. It's not just people, plants, animals. There's a lot of things that need fixing, a lot of things that need support, a lot of systems that are falling apart. So if anything, I think it should be a lesson in humanity that is super valuable, and it's really important to translate that into a skill,
Mm.
and desire to
Yeah,
provide for 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 mankind, man and womankind, man and woman and whatnot kind,
humankind. I agree that
humankind and animal kind, and
yeah,
everything.
living things and non-living things, like to be a good steward of the universe that we're a part of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It definitely, I think having those experiences has given me a lot more empathy and understanding what it's like to not have very much and to have basically just be wondering how you're gonna make it, how you're gonna eat in a day or two, and where you're gonna sleep every night, and that kind of existential lack of knowledge, that kind of mystery of not knowing how you're gonna even make it, or like not having a set routine, not having a set place to live, not having a set occupation that pays you a regular paycheck. It really did change a lot of my perspective on things and give me a greater understanding. But then it also has made it so, like, since I've been back in Kansas City for, I mean, it'll be 3 years in September, and it just really made me appreciate being able to have a place where I can stay and where I could earn money and work and just not
yeah,
have to worry about where am I going to sleep tonight and what am I going to how am I going to get money to eat, or do I need to dumpster dive? Like all these great skills that I had to learn as a traveler traveling with very little money, and suddenly now I'm very relieved though that I can use my creativity to work on music or something like that. You know, do something else with it because so much it uses so much of your energy. You know, like when you're traveling, like we were doing, you spend so much time and energy just thinking about where you're gonna stay and what you're gonna eat and how you're gonna afford it. That you don't have time to do anything else. It's like all your creativity is used in survival.
True, but it is a valuable lesson because like what is like creativity is also, I mean, I admire people who already can, stay at a certain place and then they come out with these amazing ideas. Um, and they entail, the whole wisdom of the universe and so on. But for a lot of us, we need like actual world experience and we need to see the world in order to gain the wisdom so that then afterwards we are able to, you know, use creativity to come up. You need the content so that you can do something with it creatively or not.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, I think in a way, um, it's like I think what you just said about being grateful to have a place where you can actually, deliver like have a home actually, and also to be able to deliver something on a steady base and have a structured life. Um, at the same time, sedentary jobs, like imagine like all of the downside that comes, it depends what you do, but then there's a lot of good in being able to have your whole bodily energy, life energy dedicated to where you're gonna eat next, where you're gonna go next. And it does bring you back to this mm, natural state of affairs, let's say. I
Hmm.
think it does bring movement to you. It does open horizons. It gives you mental clarity and health much more in a way than if you just have an office job and you sit there and then after work you still have to work, or you
Right.
bring work at home and you don't move, and then you get all of these like diabetes and I don't know whatnot, all of these like your back aches,
Mm.
and it's really, it's two different extremes that we're discussing, that I'm discussing. But I I really do feel that the way life is structured right now for a lot of people who are having a sedentary lifestyle that is killing them um slowly, is is it's a shame because there should be at least a point in life for all of us to be able to kind of just dedicate our time to the most basic things. And this is the life, you just eat, sleep, play with your kids, you go on a journey, explore, see the world. I think this is also understated, but at the same time now people are kind of, we can say people are doing it, but it's the this again, it's a part of this industry, like there's this massive tourism and then people do go to see the world, but it's not what you and I had, this like this, it's not it's tourism, it's not survival in a new environment. So I
Yeah.
don't know, I'm not smart to figure these things out.
Mm.
I'm just saying that I think it would be nice that we could strive for a more balanced life
Hmm.
for people.
I agree. I mean, they're kind of two pedals of a bicycle, and you really,
Yeah.
if you're only in the habit life where everything is just all laid out for you, and it's easy to just become an automaton and not
Yeah.
really be able to have deeper reflections and also to be really tired. When I'm working full time, I'm also exhausted a lot of times and I don't have energy
Yeah,
for my
right.
creativity either. And so, but then if I'm always just traveling and wandering and aimlessly, I also don't have energy for my creativity. So my creativity
Yeah.
needs to be in between those two.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I bet. Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
we're almost at the end of this section of time. I don't know if you want to continue or if we should just call it at that because it's been pretty good conversation.
I think we could like also keep going. I have a feeling that we have okay, but that's also because we haven't really been through like everything. I do remember one thing though that I'd like to mention before we really finish now.
Okay.
And what I really like, and I actually I wanted to ask you if you could send me a drive link or something to the photos because
Oh
I
yeah.
don't have any. And I want to remind myself of how things were. But I do remember one thing that I really liked, and this is the hand painted signs.
Oh
And you
yeah.
took photos of the hand painted signs, and I think that was the best thing ever because there were no billboards and all of these advertisements in the smaller places we were at, and you had still this like really skilled labor, people hand painting their signs to mark if it's like a hairdresser there or what, or a grocery shop. And I think yeah, it's really beautiful to have these like crafts um still out there. You don't see a lot of hand painted signs anymore.
I agree. Yeah, there's a real charm for anything made by hand, especially now with all the AI and all that stuff. It's kind of like the more you can see a human actually did it themselves. I think we're entering a new era of appreciation of things that people really did themselves
Yeah,
without all this
yeah,
technology. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They were so cute signs. Yeah.
it's really been great to talk to you and catch up a bit.
Yes.
We have so much more
Yes.
stories that we could
Likewise.
go into, but I also know that like your day is gonna start soon and my day is ending. Um,
Yeah.
and
What's ahead of you? What are you gonna do today?
I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna go to bed. It's
Oh yeah, that's right.
yeah, and then I'll wake up and probably start to work on this editing or
Yeah.
finalizing this episode to publish. But it's gonna it's gonna be a good one. Thank you so much for joining me on this, Sasha, and it's been wonderful to talk to you. And
Likewise.
I will we'll keep more in touch, I'm sure. But thank you for
Yeah.
being my guest on today's episode or this I guess this solstice episode of Voice Seeker.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have, yeah, had the chance to talk to you on this special day.